Siyata Dishmaya. Someone told me something very fascinating today, that we always are told, Vishivisi Hashem l'negvi tamid, that I should always view Hashem as being in front of me. When we take the word nochach, which means opposite, or in front of, or right in front of, the word nochach corresponds, is Gematria 78. And 78 is 3 times Hashem's name. To the right, to the left, and in front of us. So we should always think that Hashem is always with us and in front of us and everywhere we go. We were learning until about a month and a half ago Talmud Devorah. And as we prepared for the giving of the Torah, we learned how we can apply the different sfirot to our lives, specifically. What it means, specifically, Netzach, and Hod, and Yesod, and Malchut. And last week, we culminated it all after Kabbalah Torah by learning how we can really make ourselves a long-standing vessel for Hashem. How is it that we can receive the Torah and make everything fresh every day? And we said that the way we do it is through adding not just love of Hashem and not just fear of Hashem, but a sense of humility in how we lead our lives. I want to go back now to Talmud Devorah. And we started a while back learning about, in part 2, the different sfirot. We spent quite a long time on Keter. Keter referring to this idea of that which is so, where the air is so thin, where we're right next to the Or Ein Sof, the endless light. And Hashem is connected to us, but He's not. And we can feel His influence, but very, 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 very ethereally. But now we're going to go back to Hochma. And before we learn about Hochma, I want to share 2 things with you. The first thing is something that the Rashash HaKodesh, Rav Shlomo Sharabi, taught how we can relate to the Sfirot themselves. If you look on this chart, you'll notice the formation which resembles slightly a human being. The top, on the right you have a part which corresponds to the right brain. On the left you have that which corresponds to the left brain. If you look at the very, very pinnacle above the two, you'll see another formation of Hashem which corresponds to Keter. Keter is exactly where a baby comes out when it's born. It's where the sagittal suture is, where that squiggly line comes. And so we're going to talk about the right and the left brain, corresponding to Hochma and Bina. It's interesting when we look at how the Zohar HaKodesh introduces Chochmah and Bina, it says as follows: Chochmah moicha ihu v'machshava milagav. That Chochmah is where the internal thinking comes from. Bina liba. Bina corresponds to the heart. Ubo alev mevin. And through that we come to understanding. V'al elan trin ksiv, and concerning these two, Chochma and Bina, the pasuk says, Hanistarois Lashem Elokeinu. That which is hidden belongs to Hashem. That's what Pasach Eliyahu says about Chochma and Bina. And this idea of a relationship between Chochma and Bina is taken even further, because they are called in the Kabbalistic literature Trei Re'in de la Misfarshimine, two inseparable buddies, two inseparable close friends, two lovers that are inseparable. You can't take one away from the other. Chochma without Bina is the same as Abba without Ima. You can't raise a child properly unless you have two healthy parents. Those who try to do it deserve a lot of praise. But the child is never the same unless it has an Abba and an Ima who love each other. I happen to have guests in Tzfat this week, a couple that's divorcing. And they came to bring their two children to show them that they can still be friends with each other even though they're separating. But it's not the same. The children know. So what exactly is this relationship between Chochma and Bina? So for that, we'll turn to a beautiful article that was written by a wonderful Chacham by the name of Reb Leibel Wolf. And Reb Leibel Wolf says the following: the hemispheres of the brain correspond to Chochma and Bina, right and left brain activity. It is interesting to compare Chochma and Bina with the results of right brain and left brain research. Dr. Elmer Green of the Meminger Clinic in Topeka, Kansas, is a foremost scientist in this arena. Those of you who know of Dr. Upledger, who was the innovator of craniosacral therapy, Dr. Green was one of his foremost guides, shall we say. He considered him as a marvelous authority on brain research. Green noted that creativity is associated with right brain activity. The left brain must be quieted if we were to encourage creativity to come to the fore. The left brain is the rational cortex, developing logic, rationalizing, deducing, and judging. And this is akin to the function of Bina. Bina is understanding. Bina is rational. The right brain tends to see the whole picture. It draws on an intuitive response, providing inspiration and creativity that seems very close to the nature of Chochma. So in other words, Chochma is the essence of creativity. And who is the ultimate creative being? Hashem. And so, as we follow the pattern down from the Or Ein Sof to Keter, next comes Chochma. And yet, Chochma without Bina is not able to function. Let's go on. Bina taps the Chochma energy and puts it to good use. Chochma is called Abba, father. Bina is called Ima, mother, because it gives structure. It takes that creative energy and it gives it a vessel from which to create. In fact, Dr. Green developed a biofeedback process of training people to elicit theta waves, a sign that the left brain is relaxed, to allow the less defined processes of the right brain to work out a problem. In other words, the ima is irritable and nervous. The mom can't deal with problems. She has to present something which is logical and straightforward. We have to quiet her down in order to be able to develop the Hochma. It is conceivable that similar biofeedback techniques could be used to identify Hochma and Bina spiritual flows. Now, within Hochma lies the soul of the idea. Hence, the right brain of people tend to see overall general problems rather than coping with individual components. Scientists and artists employ non-analytic approaches to problem solving. They walk or meditate, daydream, or even sleep on it. This allows the right brain activity to emerge, the infusion of the Chochmah flow. So Chochmah, again, is creativity. It's tapping into that godly energy and saying, I can go wherever Hashem will allow me to go. Although it has become fashionable to call upon right brain activity as a solution to all problems, the truth is that both hemispheres are necessary for their respective capacities. Even the most creative people need discipline and dedication if they are to produce anything worthwhile. This derives from the left brain, from Ima, from Bina. Using a Kabbalistic point of reference, the sparks of Chochmah must be harnessed by the shaping quality of Bina. The father is the one who's able to go out, create, make a living, but we need the mother to make the nest in order to be able to have a place in order for that to go. When Bina is disciplined and defined, it is nevertheless a pathway to creative freedom, because as we say, you need both together. All too often, creative geniuses remain undiscovered because they lack the capacity to tap creativity into a meaningful and creative way. They talk about Pablo Picasso. He mastered the mind-body flow to the point where the cubic shapes, juxtaposed colors, captured a dimension of a subject that would otherwise have remained hidden. The celebrated violinist, Yuri Menuhin, took an inanimate wood and string and made it into living limbs, heart and soul. The synthesis of painter and canvas, maestro and instrument, is the result of these trei reim de la misfarshim minhei, these two inseparable parts. Each of these creative geniuses we all have within us. We're able to harness the creative spark of Chochmah and nurture it through discipline and practice with the guidance and the framework of Bina. So that is the introduction to what Chochmah and Bina are. And yet they're also both very, very hidden. Because where are they? They're inside of our brain. They're the right and left brain. They're hidden. They're called the hidden parts of Hashem, how He reveals Himself to us. So let's now, without further ado, go to Chochmah. How, again, the whole essence of Tomer Devorah is how we can apply these attributes to our lives. The first part is how we can imitate Hashem in how we conduct ourselves through the 13 principles of mercy. Now we're going to talk about the principles of the spheres, how Hashem trickles down His light to us, first through Keser, and now Chochmah and Bina. So, how should a person accustom himself with the attribute of Chochmah? Hine ha-Chochmah ha'alyona prusa al kol hanimtzaim kulam. Im heyoysa ne'elemes b'nizgeves miyoid although it is hidden and exceedingly exalted, the supernal attribute of Hochma, it is nonetheless spread out over every living thing, every existing thing. Ve'aleh nemar, concerning which it says about Hochma, Ma, listen, this is a verse that you may have all heard. Ma rabu ma'asecha Hashem, kulam b'chochma asita. That we say that verse every Rosh Chodesh in Baruch Nafshi. That how great are your works, Hashem? You've made them all with Hochma. So what do we learn from that verse? That Hochma is a tool. Hochma is the toolbox from which Hashem creates and governs the world. What about us? So says the Tomer Devorah. Similarly, a person's Hochma should be found in everything, and he should teach in order to benefit other people with his Hochma. So, when we talk about a profession, who would Hochma be? What profession would Hochma be personified by? No. Think about someone who takes people and teaches them that which they don't know, and inspires them, and guides them, and brings them to many aha moments, and makes them want to come back for more. Who is that person? He's a teacher. He's a Rebbe. He's a professor. He's one who inspires. And the whole essence of Chochmah is inspiration. So one's Chochmah should not just end when he leaves the classroom, but it should be constant. We should all be living laboratories of Chochmah. And a person should teach in order to benefit every person, each person according to how he's able to, each person according to his capacity. Kol ma sheyochol lashpi'a alav mechachmaso yashpe'u lo todiu si b'klal. And he should influence others with his chochmah to the extent where no factor distracts him. V'hinei el chochmah shnei panim. So now we know that chochmah is all about being a living guide, to influence, to inspire, to help, to open, to teach. But not just teach in the classroom. They say that the famous Greek philosopher, I believe it was Socrates, was such a master of ethics, but in his personal life, he was completely immoral. So Chochmah teaches us that we have to be transparent, that we're the same person whether we're in the company of one or two or no one, or if we're in a large group. We're always performing because Hashem is always looking to us to bring about this flow of wisdom and kindness and giving so that everyone is able to understand. And then, and I'll conclude with this, then he says that there's actually two parts to Chochmah. There is a Chochmah which is always looking up, and there's a Chochmah which is always looking down. What is the word for face in Ivrit? Panim. But panim is plural. What's the singular? It should be faces. What's the singular of faces? Let's see what the Tomer Devorah says. V'hinei el chochma shnei panim. Hochma has two faces to it, two aspects of it. Hapan ha'elyon, a upper or an upwards facing quality. Hapoine el keser, which is constantly looking up to keser for inspiration. Ve'ein oisam apanim mistaklin lamata, and that face never looks down. It's basically saying, Hashem, teach me, guide me, love me, direct me. That's the Pana Elyon. Ele mekabel milamala. It's always receiving from above. The Pana Sheni hatachton. But the lower aspect, the second aspect, is that which faces downward. V'pone lamala hashkiach b'sfiros. And what that Hochma does is it's constantly giving to each one of the spheros and each one of us in a way where it's able to receive. And it's like, if you can imagine putting a key into a lock. The key has to fit in order to open the door. And every single person that Chochmah is giving to has an aha moment. Because Chochmah is the teacher par excellence. So too with us. We need to have two faces. We need to have two faces, but not to be two-faced. Hapana Rishon, the first aspect of how we should live our lives, according to Chochmah, who he's boidedusoi bekoinoi, kidei lahoisik bechochmosu ulasakma. That we need to constantly reflect, to think, to interact, to look upward to our Maker in order to constantly increase what we know. They say that what's the difference between a glass of water and a neshama? The more you put into a glass of water, the less it's going to be able to hold. But in a neshama, the more wisdom that you put into it, the more chokhmah you put into it, the more it'll hold. That's this upper aspect of chokhmah. Because every little bit of wisdom that we add refines us, makes us closer to Hashem, makes us represent Hashem and able to carry out the second part, which is Hasheni, L'lamed b'nei adam me'oso chokhmah. We need to teach people from that chokhmah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu teaches us. K'moi she'achokhmah mashpa'as al kol sfira v'sfira k'fi shiuru tzarcha. Just as Hashem teaches us, so too we need to teach each person according to their ability to grasp and to learn. Shelo timash himena takala. A person must be very, very careful never to go over the head of the people that are listening. Somebody once said that my classes are in too high of a level for them. And I really thought about that. And I really failed when I was doing that. I need to make sure that everyone listening to me is able to understand and is able to grasp in order to be able to apply it themselves. If a person is falling asleep or a person can't grasp these ideas, I failed as a teacher. And as a matter of fact, the Zohar HaKadosh says, and the Rambam says, and here the Tomer Devar says, and we'll conclude with this, that a person needs very, very careful. Yishamer l'seis yoiser mashir sechel mushpa. A person needs to be very careful not to give more than the mind of the recipient can contain. Why? Because if one gives more than a person can grasp, not only will they be bored, but tremendous harm will result. The person will no longer be excited or influenced or want to learn. And not only that, they may misinterpret the idea and teach a great exquisite ideal of Chochmah in the wrong manner. Shekain hasfira al yona eno masifis al shira mugbal hamakabel. So too, we need to make sure that just like the supernal sphere of Hochma does not add on any more than the limited capacity of the recipient, so too, when we teach, when we share, when we're around anyone socially, and we're having an opportunity to teach them, to share with them, we need to make sure that they're on our wavelength. And that is the lower aspect of Hochma. And we'll learn more about Hochma, Bezras Hashem, next week.